This is the story about the lost Broken Skull Mine. This mine is supposedly located somewhere in the hills along the Verde River, between old Fort Mcdowell and Fort Verde. It was sometime back in the 1870s that a small group of cavalry soldiers out of Fort Mcdowell were on their way north to Fort Verde. As they were traveling along the Verde River, the soldiers decided to set up camp, as there was only a couple of hours of sunlight left. Sometime during the night, a horse had gotten loose, so the next day a couple of the soldiers were sent out to locate the missing horse. Now, these two young soldiers knew very well they were in the heart of Apache country and had heard stories of the Apache raids, and being out here alone made them a bit more than just a little nervous. However, the two men saddled up and started to follow the horse's tracks, and after a couple of hours of riding, they found the missing horse. On their way back to the camp, instead of following the river, they decided to take a shortcut over the ridge. While traveling along through a narrow canyon, they soon came across what looked like an old abandoned campsite. At first they noticed an old fire pit, and some of the bushes had been hacked away. It wasn't long before they noticed some human remains of old skeleton bones scattered about. They could tell that these people had been there for quite some time, and figured maybe they were either Mexican or maybe even Spanish miners who had been here. Knowing that this group had been killed many years before made the two men feel a little safer, and they weren't quite so nervous. While looking around, one soldier picked up a rock and noticed a bit of yellow color on it. Sure enough, it was gold. After looking around, they noticed several more pieces of this type of rock scattered around. Then they noticed what looked like tailings to a mine on the side of the hill, and they decided to check it out, but they had to get back to camp very soon. After climbing the hillside to where the tailings were, they noticed a small mine entrance. Close by, they noticed another couple of skeletons, along with some mining tools and picks. What was real disturbing, though, was the fact that both of these skeletons had their skulls smashed in. It looked like they had been bludgeoned to death. Of course, seeing this, the two men became very nervous again as they gazed the surrounding hills, thinking they were being watched. It was getting late in the day, but the two men decided to go into this mine just to check it out. It was really small, and they had to crawl on their hands and knees for quite a ways going in. After some distance, the mine opened up, and they were able to stand up. One of the men lit a match, and they could see the walls of the mine were just covered with gold. It was at that moment that the two men just realized they had hit the jackpot of a lifetime. Then they decided they better get back to camp before nightfall. On their way out of the mine, while crawling on their hands and knees, right by the entrance of the mine, one of the men got bit by a rattlesnake. The second man pulled out his revolver and shot the snake. Then the two men saddled up and started to make their way back to camp. They both made their way to the camp and told the rest of the party about their find. In fact, one of the men had brought a sample rock with him. However, the soldier who got bitten ended up dying later that night. After the group of men got to Fort Verde, the one soldier had gotten the gold fever and just couldn't resist the urge to get that gold. One night, after stealing some supplies from the storeroom, he saddled up his horse and slipped off into the dark. The next day, after they noticed the soldier was missing, a search party of men were sent out to look for him. After a short time on the trail, he was found dead, just a few miles south of the fort, with a bullet in his back, and his horse and supplies were nowhere to be found. This was the scene of an Apache killing. None of the other soldiers tried to find this mine after that, so if you are a treasure hunter, this mine is still out there somewhere between Fort Mcdowell and Fort Verde. I hope you enjoyed this short story about the lost Broken Skull Mine. Please like, share, and subscribe, so we can continue to bring you more old lost mine stories.